Good afternoon from the kitchen, folks. It's another experimental day in home brewing. Today I'm going to have a go at making some American hard gums cider. So here are my key ingredients. I've got 4 litres of apple juice from concentrate, 4 tea bags and 2 packets of American hard gums. These are 200 gram packets each. I've got some spring water and some Lalvin EC1118 yeast for champagne, sparkling wine and cider. And I'm hoping to mix these all together and make something delicious. Let's see what happens. I'm going to begin by throwing my 4 tea bags into the pan. I'm going to make a pan of tea. I'm adding a litre of water into this. The tea creates tannins and that gives the cider a bit more flavour and a bit more body. But also I'm going to use this tea then to melt the American hard gums, or I'm going to try and melt the American hard gums. So lid on, gas on, ignition. Okay, the tea bags are now boiling. I'm going to give them a mash with a potato masher just to extract as much of the tannin and flavour as I can. So these are the American hard gums. They're similar to fruit pastels. I'm not really sure why they're called American hard gums, what the origins is. Maybe you can tell me. But anyway, these are now going to go into the pan. And there's quite a bit of sugar in them. In fact, we'll have a look at the nutritional information in a second. Now, I've made a fruit pastel cider once and they didn't melt, the fruit pastels. I must admit I was disappointed. I'm hoping that these will melt. I'm going to keep them in the pan for quite a while with the lid on. And I'm just going to have them on low so they gently simmer. So I've had to do a little bit of maths here, but these American hard gum sweets contain 15% of your recommended intake of sugar, which is 90 grams is your recommended intake. So 15% of 90 is 16.66. I've got 400 grams here and that works out at 266 grams of sugar. So my key ingredient in today's cider is apple juice from concentrate. This is using the turbo cider method. Have a look at the Facebook group Turbo Ciders for All if you're interested in making ciders this way. But this is just apple juice from concentrate, no other harmful ingredients, no preservatives, no additives, it's just as is, and it's a very easy way to make cider. So I've got 3 of my 4 litres open, I've got my demijohn in the sink with the funnel, I'm going to add the apple juice now. And this is why turbo ciders are so easy. Literally pour. I've got 2 apple trees in my garden, and I do make a lot of cider in the autumn from apples. It's a lot more effortful than what this is. And you get just as good results from this, if not better, than you do from actual apples. You've got to ensure though that you are using either pure apple juice, 100% apple juice, or 100% apple juice from concentrate. No apple juice drink. Always makes me want to go though. That's 3 of my 4 litres of apple juice in. I'm going to put the melted hard gums tea in here before I put the final apple juice in, because I wanted to make sure it's all mixed together and I don't want to fill it up to the top and then not have any room for the American hard gum tea. So I've got the apple juice in the demijohn. And the American hard gum tea is simmering away. I've got to say it smells fantastic. You can smell the citrus hugely. They haven't particularly shrunk, and this is what happened with the fruit pastels. But I'm going to be a bit more persistent with these than I was the fruit pastels. When I made my fruit pastels turbo cider, I was a little bit disappointed with the haziness of the end product. Even after clearing with wine finings, it didn't clear properly. And I wondered if I'd added some pectolase into it, if that might have helped. So I'm going to add a teaspoonful of pectolase into this brew. I don't often use it, but it might help if there is going to be any cloudiness from the sweets. So just 1 rounded teaspoon and straight through the funnel into the demijohn also. Okay, these have now been simmering for an hour and they're still there. Now they're a lot smaller, they are melting, it's just taking a long time. I'm going to persist because they are getting smaller, so I'm just going to keep going with them. Okay, 1 hour and 40 minutes later, let's have a look. Tiny now. I think I'm going to do it at that. Very small. I think that will do. So just like my apple juice, in goes my American hard gums tea through the funnel into the demijohn. It's very syrupy. It smells delicious. I'm now going to top my demijohn up with some more apple juice. So I'm just going to give this a little shake around so it all mixes together. I'm now going to pour some of this out into my hydrometer jar because I need to take the original gravity, so at the end of the brew I can work out what the alcohol percentage is. I need to take the original gravity at 20 degrees and this is too warm, so I'm going to leave this to cool and I'm going to get on with the rest of the brew. I now need to add the Lalvin champagne, sparkling wine and cider yeast. That then completes the recipe for this. And there's the equivalent of about 1.5 teaspoons gone in there. Just going to give it a little shake around. I want the yeast to mix in. It's going to have a lovely time in here. It's very warm and it's got lots of sugar in it. The yeast makes the alcohol, it also makes CO2, and when fermentation begins it will create a krausen, a foamy head on top of this. There's a chance it might spew out of the top. If it does, I'll use a blow-off pipe, but I'm going to start with an airlock and see what happens and just monitor it, and if I need to swap from the airlock to a blow-off pipe then I will do. I've waited 30 minutes for the cider water in the hydrometer jar to cool to 20 degrees so I can take the original gravity. And in that time, fermentation's already started. That's how good the Lalvin yeast is. It's fantastic, so quick. Right, let's find out what the original gravity of this is then. And I'm starting off with an original gravity of 1.066, Battle of Hastings, 1066. So I'll be back in a few weeks' time when fermentation's finished. The next film will be the clearing film, so I'll see you then, folks. Morning from the kitchen, folks. An update for the American hard gums cider, which is here. And a little bit of a titivation and a rescue today, I think. So this has been 3 weeks in the demijohn. It's largely stopped fermenting, but I'm not happy with the amount of sediment. I'm not used to seeing that much sediment in a cider, and that in effect is going to mean I'm going to get one less 750ml bottle out of it. So what I'm going to do today is to remove the liquid from the sediment, put it into a fresh demijohn, and I'm going to top it up with AJ and hopefully get a little bit more bang for my buck from the end result. So it's bung out, siphoning tube in. I've got the tube held in place with this pump clip and I've got the bottom of the tube just above the sediment level. I will take a bit of sediment up and that's fine because I'm going to need some yeast and that's where it'll be hanging around for the fermentation to kickstart again in the second demijohn. So here we go. I'm going to put the first bit in my hydrometer flask and then into the demijohn because I want to take the gravity of this, because I'll need to know what the final gravity of this stage of the brew is to work out what the final alcohol percentage will be at the end. I'm going to have to take 2 original gravities and 2 final gravities as I go along. You'll get it, I'll explain it later on. Don't worry, it's fine. Bit of maths. And I can see from this that the gravity right now is 1.010, 1010. So it started at 1066 and it's currently 1010. So I'm just going to work out the alcohol by volume as it currently stands. So I'll take the original gravity of 1.066. I'll deduct from that the final gravity of 1.010, and that equals 0.056. I'll multiply that by 131.25, and that equals 7.35%. So that's a really respectable percentage at this point. And there we go. So the bubbles tell me that the siphoning is over. I shall lift and unclip and let this liquid pour into the new demijohn. So now into the demijohn goes another litre of AJ, and this is apple juice from concentrate again. I might not get the full litre in, it's looking quite full straight away. Oh, that's taken a full litre, so that's good. So I'm just going to tip some of this into my hydrometer jar, just so I can ascertain what the new starting gravity is. And the new starting gravity for this is 1.014. So I'm not going to get a lot more alcohol out of this, but it will make it a little bit more alcoholic and hopefully a little bit more appley flavoured as well. So I'm going to pop the bung back in, and hopefully there'll be a little bit more fermentation now from the yeast that's in suspension, picking up the sugars in the new apple juice, and I want this gravity hopefully to go down to 1.000. So we'll see what happens, and I'll update you again in a week or so's time. Okay, see you later, folks. Good afternoon from the kitchen, folks. It's American Hard Gum Cider clearing day, and here it is. So this has been back in the demijohn since I added the litre of apple juice for another 3 weeks. The airlock hasn't moved whatsoever. It's had a slight ring of bubbles in that entire period, and I've barely seen any activity. I've seen the odd bubble rise, which it is doing now since I've just lifted it up and put it in the sunshine. But I think this is done. I'm going to risk it, so I'm going to try clearing it today. So bung out, siphoning tube in. I've got the tube held in place with a clip. I've got the end of the pipe right down into the sediment, so let's get on with it. So I'm getting a little bit of sediment out to start with, it doesn't matter. Okay, right, I'm clearing with Clear It wine finings from Young's. Good finings, use them a lot. It's a 2-step process, bottle A, then bottle B. So while this is siphoning in, I'm going to add a little bit of bottle A, about a teaspoon equivalent, or thereabouts. And now it's simply a case of letting it all siphon in. Easy. And there we go, bubbles in the tube tell me that this stage of the process is done. So I've got the American Hard Gum Cider now in this fermentation vessel. I'm going to leave it in here for an hour, just giving it a little agitation so it mixes, and then I'm going to come back to it and see what it looks like. So I'll see you in an hour. An hour has passed and you can see that there's a little bit of sediment in the bottom, so I'm going to try and siphon this off again back into the original vessel, just here, and try and avoid that sediment coming through. Once again. So while this is going through, I'm going to add finings B. Again, the same amount as finings A. Around about a teaspoon, so. And the siphoning process will just ensure that that mixes nicely. And there we go. So this is now back in its original demijohn, which I've cleaned out. I'm going to leave this for a few days and we'll see what impact finings B has. So I'll catch you then, folks. Good morning from the kitchen, folks. It's American Hard Gum Cider bottling day. So here it is. I'm not going to be clearing this any further. I'm going to let this one go naturally now as much as possible. Hopefully in the bottle this will become clearer. There is definitely some opacity to it, as you can see there, but I'm not going to get this to go any clearer than what it is, and that's down to the fact that I've got the dissolved American hard gums in there, and that tends to happen. I've got my bottles ready in the sink. I'm using mostly 500 mils. I've got a 330 in reserve if I've got more than what I've guesstimated, but I think 7 500 mils is probably what I'm going to get out of this. So I'm going to begin by priming my bottles, and for each of these 500 ml bottles I'm going to do a teaspoon of sugar, which is roughly about this much in this little device here. Shake that through. And priming the bottles will hopefully make the final product have a bit of a fizz or a sparkle. Then it's bung out, siphoning tube in. I'm holding my tube steady with this clip. I've got the bottom of it into the sediment, and that doesn't matter because the first bit that comes out is going into the hydrometer jar. So let's rock and roll. Okay. Well, first impressions are it's got a strong cidery smell, cidery stroke winey smell. I'd be interested to see how this one comes through actually with the hard gums in there. I did make a fruit pastels one and that was okay. So fingers crossed this will be too. And there we go, bubbles in the siphoning tube. So I've nearly filled this bottle, but not quite. So what I'm going to do is I'll take a little bit out of here to top that last bottle up. So I've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 500 ml bottles, and I'll have 1 330 ml bottle. So that was a pretty good guess on my part by looking at the demijohn. It's with experience. I need to cap my bottles, but before I do, I need to get this one filled up. So before I can do that, I need to take the final gravity. So in goes the hydrometer, a good sink. The final gravity is 1.006. 1.006, and that's actually slightly higher than what I expected. So I'm bottling today with this lever crown capper. It's a bit like Space Invaders or Predator. But it's basically a bit of a fiddly job pushing down to get the caps to come on. Caps magnetically attached to it, just there. Then I've got my bottle in the sink, so I'm pushing downwards and not at work surface level, because that's when you get slips and problems. And notice I'm also standing the bottle on a silicone mesh cloth. That's non-slip, so the bottle won't slip as I'm using the capper. There we go, that's gone down nicely. And you can see that's a nice tight cap. Anyway, I've got to do this a few more times and there might be some swearing, so you don't need to see all that. I'll come back to you when it's done. Okay, after a slight struggle and a bit of swearing, a lot of swearing, bottles are now capped. I would not want to do that if I was doing massive brews, that's for certain. I think a bench capper might have to be invested in the future. Anyway, I need to now rinse all my bottles to get any sticky residue off the outsides. And this is because I want to label them. I don't want to be labelling sticky bottles. So just looking back on my notes, and if you go back through the film you'll remember this, but the original gravity was 1.066. I then had to rack it off, if you remember, and I took the initial final gravity at that point, which was 1.010, which gave me an original alcohol by volume of 7.35%. I then had a new starting gravity of 1.014 after I'd added my litre of apple juice. So I deduct from that the final original gravity of 1.006, and that equals 0.08. I multiply this by 131.25, and that equals 1.05. So the effect of me adding the extra litre of apple juice is that it's increased the alcohol by volume by 1.05%. So to work out the final alcohol by volume, I take the initial alcohol by volume of 7.35% and I add to it the second alcohol by volume I got from adding the extra apple juice, which was 1.05%. So 7.35 plus 1.05 gives me a final alcohol by volume of 8.4%, and that's a nice percentage for a cider. I've got my cider bottle labels made up in a simple template in Microsoft Word. Just got to print these off now. Just applying my labels to my bottles now, trying to do it as neatly and evenly as possible. Just try and take a bit of pride. I want them to look nice. And there we go, the final result. So welcome to the conservatory, folks. It's a south-facing conservatory, and in summer this is where I can condition my wines, beers and ciders. And I'm going to condition these under this unit here, or inside this unit. They're out of direct sunlight, and the temperature in here will stay above 20 for the foreseeable few weeks. And there they are, and there they'll stay for another 2 weeks now. So my next film will be in about 2 weeks' time when it comes to opening and tasting. So I'll see you then. Good evening from the kitchen, folks. It's American Hardgum Cider opening night. As always, I'm quite excited about opening this one. It's a really unusual one to make. Hopefully I'm going to enjoy it. I'm looking for a sparkle. I'm looking for it to look decent in the glass. Some clarity would be nice. A good smell, but above all, a nice flavour. What am I going to get? I don't know. Am I going to get any fizz? Let's see. Small. Okay, so it wasn't a big one, but there's some fizz. Incidentally, this has been in the bottle for 4 weeks, so it's been conditioning for 4 weeks. I can see some bubbles rising in the bottle. Oh yeah, we've got a sparkle. Right, let's have a look. So, very clearly a sparkle, no question about it. It's got some opacity, I can see a little bit through it, but it's still fairly cloudy. I don't mind that though, that is the American Hardgums, I can't do much about that. It smells really appley actually, more than anything. The smell doesn't obviously say American Hardgums. Really, really fruity, nice. Different, sharper than I expected. And at the same time quite full-bodied. There's a lot going on there. You wouldn't know it was American Hardgums, but you would know that there was a lot of fruitiness going on in that. It's got a sharp edge, almost like a lemoniness to it, but it's not a dry cider. It's somewhere in between a medium and a medium dry. I'd put it in sort of that ballpark. It tastes very good though, and certainly on a hot sunny day like today, this is going to go down a treat. Yep, I like it. It's a winner. So cheers, folks. Hope you're having a wonderful day, and I'll catch you on the next brew. The film that you've just watched is a Moss Home and Garden production. You can find more by going to www.mosshomeandgarden.co.uk. I'd just like to say thank you very much for supporting my YouTube channel and for watching my films. It really is very much appreciated. If you haven't already done so, please subscribe to my YouTube channel in order to receive future updates about the home and garden films which I upload. You can find my YouTube channel by going to www.mosshomeandgarden.co.uk. please click on the red subscribe button. When you've done that, a little bell will appear. If you press that also, then you'll get future updates about the films which I upload. If you like my films, if you like my style of filming, then you might also like my travel channel, which you will find by going to youtube.com/Stuart Moss or type in www.mosstravel.tv. Again, if you could subscribe to that channel, it would be hugely appreciated. If you'd like to get Moss Home and Garden updates on Facebook, then please open Facebook and do a search for Moss Home and Garden, and you will find the page. If you like the page, then you will get future updates on there. And if you'd like to connect on Instagram for home, garden and travel photography, as well as some stories, then my username is StuMoss, STUMOSS. If you'd like to connect on Twitter, then my username is @StuartMoss. And if you'd like to contact me about film usage or any other issue, please just email me on stewmosshomegarden@gmail.com. Once again, thank you very much for supporting my channel, for watching my films. I do appreciate it. I'd just like you all to have a great day.